the Almighty God.
Amen.
We, this evening, as I suspect, will carry on into next week. We want to look at a word that we have used and that appears several times in the Bible. We use it in a sort of popular way that it would do us well to have it in context, because everywhere we see this word, it always means the same thing or the way that we have used it. And this word is dispensation. Dispensation. So when we think dispensation, what comes to our mind?
No, I was saying something that is dispensed. This.
Okay, so like the pharmacy dispenses.
Yes, right.
Okay. A period of time. Anybody else? Yeah, those are popular ways, right? So, in the, if I should ask it in the biblical sense, alright, then we would start thinking, as Brother Rockboy mentioned, dispensation as a period of time. Alright? What we want to do, we want to invest some time to sort of clarify, because while when we read or when we study the Bible and the New Testament, when we see dispensation, we may be inclined to think that it's a period of time. We want to recognize that the word is often used in other ways. Alright, so you may go to the Bible and you are reading, and we usually talk about dispensation, alright, referring to ages, a period of time, a span of time. And if I was to ask, what are the dispensations that we know about, different from those different meanings, like dispensing drugs and whatever. When we take it from the context of a period of time, what are the dispensations that we need? Okay, so, alright, so we hear Rockboy said one. Alright.
What did he say?
I'm not telling you. I'll give you another person a chance. Patriarchal. Alright, patriarchal age. The Mosaic, that's the one who said. Alright. And your prophet age. Alright, prophet age. Alright. That's one. Alright. And Christianity or the Christianity. So really, we speak about three major dispensations. The patriarchal age, that's the age of the fathers. We'll come back to that. The Mosaical age, that's the age in which the law and the whole system of the law was in effect. Alright, and now we are in the Christian age, or the Christian dispensation. Alright, where we can classify this, and I don't want to go ahead of myself too much. Alright, so in the patriarchal age, alright, we had God speaking to the father. So what we saw featured was the household. Alright, so the head of the house. God would speak to them either directly or through the prophets. Alright, so we had that age. Alright, then when we moved on, alright, we saw that God in his redemptive process now moved beyond the household to a whole nation. And the special nation was Israel. Alright, so we talk about the Mosaical age, so the Ten Commandments was given, but a whole lot of other things, a lot of other statutes and judgments, how we are to worship, how we are to live among ourselves and interact with each other. But that the focus of that was on a particular nation, the nation of Israel. And then the last age and the last dispensation is that of the Christian dispensation. Alright? And that now is not, there's not a focus, while there is a play on the household, there is no restriction while God still sees nations. But the Christian dispensation is speaking to the entire world, the entire universe, the entire earth. Alright, is its scope. Alright? So we are going to get there. Alright? Probably I even went a little too far into that already. But let us, so what's the word we're looking at? Dispensation, as it is used in the Bible and in particular the New Testament. Okay, get for me Ephesians chapter 3 and verse 2. Somebody else? Ephesians chapter 1 verse 10, and hold as well 1 Corinthians chapter 9 and verse 17. Alright, we can have them in whatever order.
Alright, so Ephesians 3 verse 2.
Ephesians 3 2.
If indeed you have heard of the dispensation of the grace of God, which was given to me for you.
Okay. Alright. So here we see the word dispensation. So you have heard of the dispensation of the grace of God, which is given to you all. Alright. Alright, you're going to hold that. Alright. Verse 9.
Ephesians 3 verse 9. And to make all see what is the fellowship of the mystery, which from the beginning of the ages has been hidden in God, who created all things through Jesus Christ.
Okay. Alright, I'm going to leave a little homework for next week. Alright, from now. What in this verse points to dispensation? Alright, so that's Ephesians chapter 3 and verse 9. What in this verse speaks to dispensation? Alright, there's something in this verse that speaks to the word dispensation. Alright, so that's a homework. Alright, next passage. I'm going to come back to all of these. Ephesians chapter 1 and verse 10.
That in the dispensation of the fullness of time, we might gather together in one all things in Christ, both which are in heaven and which are on the earth, even in him.
Okay. So here we talk about the dispensation of the fullness of times. Alright, I think the last one was Corinthians, 1 Corinthians 9 and verse 17. 1 Corinthians 9:17.
For if I do this willingly, I have a reward. But if against my will, I have been entrusted with a stewardship.
Okay. Alright, so you're reading a different version. Alright. Alright, somebody I want the word dispensation to come out, so
King James.
read the King James version. That was the King James version?
For if I do these things willingly, I have a reward. But if against my will, the dispensation of the gospel is coming unto me.
Alright. So what we're seeing here is the word dispensation being used several places. Alright, and I don't think this is the extensive use of the word. Alright. the root word, all right, that we see in the Greek. All right, let's see if I can speak in tongues. I'll do the interpretation. Oikonomia, all right, and this is rendered dispensation. All right, so what I just did was I spoke in an unknown tongue, and I gave the interpretation. All right. So we see it occurring several places. So we have read these. All right. What we want to do today and next week, all right, God's willing, is to recognize that not everywhere where we see the word dispensation, that it is actually referring to ages or period of time. So it brings to us now the principle that we must always look at the context. So if we have in our minds that dispensation means that it's always a period of time or the ages, then we will read scripture and we get lost as to how is this a period of time, or how is it, which period of time are we talking about? Are we talking about the time of the age of the patriarchs, the period of time when it was the Mosaic law that was at play, all right, or is it now the Christian age? All right, so the word itself is used in different contexts. All right, so for example, in 1 Corinthians chapter 9 and verse 17, it's really the concept of stewardship that is at play. All right, so for if I do this thing willingly, I have a reward. But if against my will, a dispensation of the gospel is committed unto me. All right. So we could strain ourselves and say, oh, it is the age or the dispensation where we have the gospel. But in reality, it is really that we have been given a responsibility. We have to give an account, a stewardship, all right, of the gospel. Is the real meaning when you take the rendering of the word dispensation. All right. So we're going to come back to this. All right. Where I want us to go, and we'll get to that next week, is that oftentimes, and this was popularized by a particular scholar, all right, where if you should look up dispensation, what comes up a lot is the whole concept of dispensationalism. All right? And so we're going to spend some time next week looking at what is that. Because if we start equating what is out there in the religious world as dispensationalism and thinking that that is the same thing as when we talk about the different dispensations or the ages in which God enacted his redemptive act for man, then we will get all confused. Yeah. All right? And so what we will be spending most of next week doing is looking at exactly what is the religious concept of dispensationalism. All right? And just to give you a hint, that's false doctrine. All right? It has some false concept, all right, and has some implication that just runs counter to truth. All right? So, what are we saying so far? One, the word dispensation, all right, primarily has in its meaning, several meanings. A concept of stewardship, a concept of something arranged or pre-planned. All right, we'll delve back into that in a few minutes. All right, we saw that in Ephesians chapter 3 and verse 9. So everywhere where you see the word dispensation, don't assume that it means a period of time. All right, or they're speaking to that concept. All right. Okay. In fact, in the main and in the New Testament, the root word that I spoke earlier, all right, for dispensation, is not the prime. How we use it in terms of ages, it's not its usage in New Testament. That's not the primary way it is used. All right, in terms of ages. All right, so we have used it in terms of a modern usage of the word. So we say conveniently, it's the patriarchal dispensation, meaning the patriarchal age. In fact, probably for me, it's to be a preference to use the word age, the ages. Okay, so the use of the word. So it's not like it's a wrong thing to do, but just be mindful as we study and as we share and teach others to be mindful that the primary usage of the word dispensation is not necessarily a period of time. Alright? So we might need a little time to digest this, alright? But bear that in mind. Okay, let's now jump back to Ephesians chapter 3 and verse 9. Alright? Did you have that wrong one? Ephesians 3 9.
And to make all men see what is the fellowship of the mystery.
Oh, sorry. No, that's the one I was quoting for your homework. That's the one for the homework. Alright? That does not use the word dispensation. Alright? But you are supposed to research that for me. So I'm going to skip that one. Alright? So what we see in 1 Corinthians 9:17, alright, is that it's a concept of stewardship. Is there a way we can interpret this verse to point to a period of time? 1 Corinthians 9, verse 17. For if I do this thing willingly, I have a reward. But if against my will, a dispensation of the gospel is committed unto me. How could we, or can we interpret this to be a period of time?
Into eternity.
Alright, so Rabbi says yes. Don't give me the pause yet. Alright, anybody else? Yes, no?
Goes up to
Repeat the
eternity.
question. Looking at 1 Corinthians 9, verse 17. Using the concept of dispensation being a period of time, how that allow us to, how could we use that to interpret or to give meaning to 1 Corinthians 9:17? Can you?
Yes.
Yes. Another yes. Alright, okay. Okay, I'll go with Sister Tyrell first with the Y. You don't want to do the yes. Alright. Okay, rock boy. Sister Tyrell said she's not going to give me the Y. She'll say the yes or the no. Alright, yeah, Paul.
Dispensation, the word is seen as associated with the gospel. So, you look at it from that perspective, we can say it's not one of Christian dispensation of the gospel.
Okay.
It's communicated on the
Alright. That's what you want, that's what you're going to say. So the period where we have the gospel would be the Christian age, or the Christian dispensation. Alright? And so we could look at it in that way. Alright? Okay, but that's not the primary usage of the word dispensation. But we can infer that. Alright? So we're going to ask the same question of this passage.
That in the dispensation of the fullness of time, he might gather together in one all things in Christ, both which are in heaven and which are on earth, even in him.
So we'll ask the question again. Okay, and let me pick on somebody. Alright. So that I don't have Rockboy volunteering for everything. So he miss us. Alright, and I want to catch up the whole year that he wasn't away. I want to answer all of the questions. So Vivian, the concept of dispensation being a period of time. Can we see how this could be applied in this verse of Ephesians chapter 1 and verse 10? That in the dispensation of the fullness of times, he might gather together in one all things in Christ, both which are in heaven and which are on earth, even in him. You can let you get away with the yes, or you can give me the yes and the or the no and the why.
Yeah, I would say yes.
Yes, okay, in what way?
Well, I would use the word fullness of time.
No, the man can't remember it.
Using the idea of fire here. From the beginning to where we are.
Okay. What I anticipated, but I see your logic. Alright? You heard what he said, Sylvie? So if I heard Fabian correctly saying the dispensation of the fullness of time is like it's a culmination of all of them.
Yeah.
Alright, okay. Alright. Interesting way to look at it. Alright, going to come back to it. Alright, anybody else says yes, they could interpret it using the kind of period of time, but would interpret it differently? Yes, brother. You're saying yes. And why? Or how? How do you utilize dispensation being a period of time? How did allow you now to process and interpret this verse? If you are looking at it from a period of time. You're asking me back a question? You can't ask me a question with that. You can't answer my question with a question. Alright. Okay, so I'll come back. Alright. As I said, Vivian's response was a little different than what I anticipated. Alright. Alright, so I'm waiting for the other one. Alright. Full dispensation of the fullness of time. Alright, I remember the hint now is we had looked at the patriarchal, the Mosaical, and the Christian. Alright. So fullness of time. Alright. Alright. When is the fullness of time?
Judgment.
When the time is right.
Judgment.
When God sent his son. Alright? So alright? Okay. So I think we could interpret or infer, alright, from the from the dispensation that it is referencing the age. Oh, you had your hand up. I didn't allow you to go before I summarize.
I was saying that it's referencing Christian age.
Christian age.
Christian context. Because, reference to the fullness of time.
So when the time was fully come. Right. So if we could look at it that way, so that it is the time of Christ. Alright? So the thing is that while the primary usage of dispensation, alright, is not in terms of the root word a period of time, we can see how we can deduce some interpretation or process from the context in some situations, like in these two that we are brought up. Brother Pierre.
When we use the word, I'm asking, when we use the word ages and when we use the word dispensation, both can be used interchangeably in some respect. But to me, I'm asking this thing. Dispensation is more flexible in terms of time span. While ages seems to have a longer period, dispensations can be flexible in terms of time span.
You say you were asking. In both situations, the context that you can talk about, and no Alice, for ages. Alright, how long is that? Then you can say something like, oh, this type of snake has existed in Jamaica for ages. So the context is still going to define ages. That, by the way, that usage of ages was that the one that you say was specific or varied?
Ages tends to be ages tend to be a longer period.
Longer period.
But dispensation can be flexible to long or short.
Okay.
Or in between.
So give me an example of a short dispensation and a long
An
dispensation.
extension store is not for it's a period of time.
Right. So the response to your question, as we go take as a question, is that both are defined by the context. Both are defined by the context. Alright. What I want to sort of leave in our minds, alright, is that one, not everywhere we see dispensation in the New Testament must always just automatically start saying, oh, it is either patriarchal age, the Mosaical age, or the Christian age. Alright? The word itself can have other meanings. Alright? So that's one thing. Alright? But the way we have used it and how it has evolved, alright? The way it has evolved and used sort of interchangeable with ages is not necessarily out of context. Alright, so we do have a dispensation, we do have an age where God was dealing with man in a particular way.
Right.
Alright, we did have an age where God was dealing with man through a particular nation.
Right.
That's a particular age, a particular dispensation. Alright, and we are now existing in an age, in a dispensation, in a period of time where God is not looking at just a specific nation anymore, but whether you are Jew or Greek, alright, or Gentile, he is dealing with man in a particular way. Yes, Brother Gilbert.
Yeah, I like the point it's not just, the word is not just about age, but it's also the way God delivered the message. I mean, it's tied to age in a sense, but it's also how God will live up. And I think that is how we, in modern times, start to use the word dispensation. It's not
How it is delivered.
Yeah, or delivered the message. First and foremost, then the nation, then their work. So it's not just time we need. I think that's the point you're making here, right?
No, I find your comment very interesting because when we started, I think just before you had come in, when we asked about the usage of the word dispense or dispensation, Sister Tyrell had made the analogy to the pharmacy in terms of dispensing medication. Right? And so when you talk about the way it is delivered or to whom it is delivered, we see the link and the use of the word. Right? Okay, so let me use the next few minutes to sort of drill down a little. We said it at first, but we just want to make sure that it is cemented in our minds. Okay, so the patriarchal dispensation or age, in this age, this extended from creation to the Mosaic period. So this was the first period of time, and how God communicated His will, how He delivered His will, how He dispensed His will to mankind. So what we see here, patriarch. What does that? Where does that come from? Patriarch. Father. So we talk about like a family, and we talk about the patriarch in the family. That's the male head. In every family, do we have a patriarch? If we don't have a patriarch in a family, what do we have? A matriarch. So the family, the royal family, up to 2-3 years ago, had as its head Queen Elizabeth. So she was the matriarch. Okay, what we are seeing here is that from the inception of time, from the creation, God actually communicated His will, communicated how He wanted persons to worship Him through the household, through the fathers. Alright? And, who was the first patriarch? Adam. Alright? We see in Genesis 12, I can read this one, verse 1. Genesis 12, verse 1.
Now the Lord had said unto Abraham.
You sure it's Abraham? Is it Abraham?
One verse. Genesis 12:1.
12:1.
Now the Lord had said unto Abraham.
Abraham. As opposed to Abraham. Yes, okay.
Get thee out of thy country, and from thy kindred, from thy father's house, unto a land that I will show thee.
So what we see here is because God wanted to treat with Abraham special. Alright? He wanted to communicate with him as the head of the house. Notice what he had to do. He had to leave, separate himself from his family, from his father's house, so that he would be the head, he would be the patriarch. Alright? And then God would have a special communication with him. Alright? And I will show you, alright, things. Alright? I'll give you instructions, I will give you commands. Alright? Alright? So okay, we see a similar thing, alright, with Job. Alright? Alright, let's read that quickly. Job 1. Job 1.
There was a man in the land of Uz.
There was a man in the land of Uz.
Whose name was Job.
Yes.
And that man was perfect and upright, and one that feared God and shunned evil.
And avoided evil. Alright? He should evil. Alright? So we are saying, and we could select other persons. We could right, give me another patriarch. Sister Brock, give me another patriarch that you can think of. Israel? Why you want to complicate the thing and say Israel? Give me a synonym for Israel. Jacob, right? Yeah, because you ain't confused it now. Alright. Yes. Alright, the Jacob. Alright, Noah. Alright. Okay. These are all heads of their homes, and God will give them special instruction, direction through the head, or the patriarch, alright, of the house. Alright. Okay, so but what was clear is that God would, in giving his instructions, he would deliver it, dispense it through the head of the home. Alright, Hebrews chapter 1, verse 1 and 2.
Right.
Alright.
God is understands.
God
is God at understands and in diverse ways speak in time as to the Father by the prophets.
Alright, you can pause here. So that age when he was talking to the fathers through the prophets, alright, that would have been the age, the patriarchal age. Alright? Speaking to the fathers. Alright? Okay, now I'm just going to go through this so that we have a complete thing. So we come back now and focus on the dispensationalism. Then we would have covered here. Alright? So the Mosaic dispensation began where? Sinai. Alright? At Mount Sinai. After they passed through the Red Sea, alright, that's the time that the Mosaic dispensation began, where God gave the law of Moses to the Israelites. Alright? And as we said earlier, this didn't just include the Ten Commandments. It didn't just talk about moral right and wrong. It would have now dictated how they ought to worship, how they ought to please the Almighty God. Alright? Now notice that in this period of time, in this age, that it wasn't now just a family. Alright? It started out with a family. Alright? And when you track it, then you could see that even the nation was born out of a family. Alright? Cheryl touched on it earlier. Alright? Because when we talk about Israel, alright, and the children of Israel, then what we have to bear in mind is that we can trace that lineage right back to Abraham, coming down, Isaac, Jacob, and then Israel. Alright, Israel is really Jacob. Alright, so we talk about the 12 tribes of Israel. It's the 12 sons of Jacob. Alright? So, yeah. So, but when in this period of time now, it would not be God speaking now to the fathers, but that he would have codified a set of instructions that he has given now to that entire nation. Now, it's important to note, this is just a side point, it's important to note that even though God would have spoken, like in the patriarchal age, he would have had like Abraham, it's not like he didn't care about any other family. Alright? But Abraham would have been special. Alright? He would have been special instruction because in fact, it would have been special because of his agenda.
Yeah.
Alright? What's the agenda? What was God's agenda? When I say his agenda, what was the agenda? Or what is an agenda? I'm hearing songs, but I'm not hearing any words.
Reason.
To save man from sin. That was his agenda. Alright? I was going to say from the beginning of time, but from before time, he had that as his agenda. So it's not that God didn't care about any other family in the patriarchal age. It's not that he didn't care about any other nation. But this had a particular function aligned to his plan. Alright? And so even in the Mosaical age and dispensation, God gave opportunity for persons who were not Israelites to still have association with him. What do I mean? Put that in your own word.
So that other nation could be saved?
Other nations could be saved. How? Proselytes. Alright. So you want to put proselyte in your response? Alright. You're going to change your response here.
I've heard it said before that while the Jews were under the law, the Gentiles have been under the patriarchal system. What is your view on that?
Oh, okay. That's alright. Okay. So you're going to be here next week? Okay. Alright. So I'll repeat your question. But let me go with what I wanted first, and then I'll come back to you. Right. So the point I'm making now is that while God would have chosen the Israelites as his special nation, with whom he had a special covenant, with whom he had the expectation and the plan for Jesus Christ to come through and prepare for Christ to come. So there's no thought that the children of Israel were special. Nobody can argue that they were a special, chosen set of people. But did God close the door to other persons? No. Alright? You put the proselytes 10. Alright. Event recording, I don't know if there's such a word as proselyting. Alright. But you could become a Jew even though you were not born a Jew. You could go through a process to in a sense become a Jew, an Israelite. Alright, but you'll be a proselyte. Alright? Okay, and you can research that. How could one, what are the steps that one could take to become into that arrangement? Alright. So Rocco asked a question. Alright. So we have the patriarchal age, and we are saying at Sinai, after the children of Israel passed through the Red Sea, we now had a new system. Alright, the Mosaical system. Rocco is saying that he has heard